Yeah.
And that button. And
What does your shirt say?
it's a Radiohead shirt. We're almost in agreement. Almost in agreement, everybody. As promised, I'm still working through my city candidates. I've had Lauren on before as a council person, but this is more of a campaign conversation, which I'm sure will move into regular council stuff too, as we're apt to do. But that's that. That's what we're doing. Almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, our website, almostinagreement.com. Has all the episodes available on it, as well as any of your major favorite podcast providers. If you haven't seen it yet, I've got the city elections guide. That's almostinagreement.com/cityelections21. It's just a quick breakdown using everybody's own talking points and links to their own website, as well as links to KGIS and the Knox County Election Commission to check your registration status or where your voting district is and all that kind of stuff. Because if you're like me, there's a lot of different numbers that you got to keep track of between city, county, state, and so on. So, almost agreement with Lauren Ryder. She's running for District 4, and we'll talk about that, among other things, forthwith. Hello, Miss Lauren.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Me and the kids have been playing down here, and so all the knobs and stuff have been switched around, and so we've been making rock music.
We're gonna have the treble and the bass all mixed up.
Right. I'll have to do a little bit more post work than I normally like to do, but that's that. And
Are your kids gonna make their own podcast?
we've talked about it. They won't give me a structure, which I think it might be a little hypocritical of me because I don't really do.
You're so structured.
I don't do a super hard structure, but it's like, well, we want to do a gaming thing, but we also want to do like, and it's just like I don't know. Like I'm down to help them with it, but for my end of it, to actually have to sit down and do all the tech side of it for them, because they have that innate kid ability to wander in and out of topics, as well as it could be 15 minutes or 5 hours, and it's like I'm good with whatever. If you want to do a 5-hour podcast, I will produce that podcast, but either you have to learn how to actually do the knobs and stuff, or you got to start paying me or something. I got to figure out.
How old are they?
11 and 9. Well, almost 9.
Okay. All right.
I've had them on a couple times. We did a Christmas show because they wanted to talk about the Christmas presents. And I tried to do one where we talked a lot about their perception of how school was with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff.
That's kind of cool.
And it was, I don't know, it was interesting. I mean, I don't know, for at least their end of it, they don't. Is
this close enough, by the way?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. I was talking about the mic, folks. Sorry, I realize this is an audio thing.
It's mostly audio. There is some video too, but it's mostly audio. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, for them, it's like, it's just, I don't know, for lack of a better way to as I interpreted it, it was like, I don't know, wearing the mask and the different rules that were in place. There's just another set of rules in a place that all it is rules anyway. So it wasn't, I mean, I think as a parent looking at it, there's a lot of issues, missed time, missed education, that, I know there's a lot of conversation about how we're going to make that up and stuff like that. But I mean, we just hired a tutor today, actually, for my eldest, because I think some of what he missed, the biggest part of, is some of his handwriting and written communication skills that he was already not very good at, and then had a big chunk of all the weirdness, and then some stuff's on computers and some stuff's not on computers and all this different stuff. And so that's going to start here in the next week or so for him. He's not particularly happy about it. We tried to do it at home, but it ended up being, I wanted to, I'm going to choke my child. I'd like to keep that relationship semi-functional.
It was a rough year. I had 2 middle schoolers at home, and my husband is incredibly academic. And so every day was, what did you do today? You didn't do what you were supposed to do. In the end, my kids had straight A's. Right. But it was some rough parenting and a lot of, it's not ideal. And well, here's what I'll say, because I work in a community college. My kids learned how to be college students and work independently because that's what they did all year. So we are looking forward to the school year starting, and it's good stuff.
I too cannot wait for a week and a half from now, so
Send them back.
Right, get my state-sponsored daycare back in line, so I can live my life and do more interviews and do all the stuff that I want to do as an adult. But okay, so backing it up here a second, we're in election mode. We've got I guess we got a week and a half before some
early
voting
August
stuff
11th through the 26th. Early vote, get out,
and then the
do it.
official primaries on the 31st, and then
That's my birthday, absolutely.
So happy birthday early. I think we made that joke last time you were on here too.
All the time. People are like, when's the election? I'm like, my birthday.
The best day ever.
I mean, to me and my cousin that also has that birthday. Yeah.
Was it the cousin we talked to?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I'm not related to that cousin.
How are they? Are they good up there?
Mary, Mindy's her mom. Mary and Will.
Yeah.
I think they're good. They're
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Wasn't sure if you talked to them since, because like,
A couple of comments here and there on Facebook.
but
So.
because that was fun. That was a really cool episode to do.
Yeah,
I the tech part of me enjoyed it. The dorky, like, hey, I got Zoom and a person in the room and cameras and all the different stuff moving at the same time. But also for the big conversation that was the stadium use complex and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was a really fun conversation to have. It's a really unique insight that I don't know that anybody that's not directly involved as far as the development planners and stuff like that who are doing those things for their own ends.
Sure.
I don't know that I've heard it anywhere else other than out of their mouth, and they have an agenda at play where we didn't.
Cousin Mary has no agenda. I don't per se have an agenda. It just was, interesting to say, hey, do you ever go to this thing?
You absolutely do have an agenda. You're trying to get elected. That is your agenda.
Yeah, but I don't think so far pro or against the baseball stadium hasn't been part of my agenda. It's certainly not part of my messaging.
Fair enough. Okay, so
there you
back to since we're doing a one of these episodes that's campaign specific.
Sure.
District 4. I always have everybody explain what their district is, so people who are unaware of what district they are in, if they're in neighborhood X, they're in District 4. What is your kind of basic geographical? Here's where if you're one of these people, you're one of mine.
Yeah, so the business corridor on Central, from the intersection at Central and Broadway, and so businesses up and down Central and Broadway, 4th and Gill, Old North, Edgewood, North Hills, Coker, Chicago, all the way up to Emerald and Fairmont, Fountain City, Alisbell Spring Hill, the East Mall that is no more, a pile of rubble.
Yeah, it is.
A cleared site.
Yes.
An opportunity in the making. And then Holston Hills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, none of those apply to me, but that's what the point of this is, to get it out for everybody who does apply to, because your Easttown area goes all the way up to the top of the hill before you come down the hill into Halls.
Up to the ridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then across over to the central side of it. So is Central the line that divides you guys from the next one, or is it?
No, it's a little over. And I made a point of saying that because I did listen to your podcast with my opponent, one of them, and specifically it was stated, not by you, that Central was not in the district. It most certainly is. I'm very proud to have some businesses over there, like Schultzbrow.
And Fanatic and
Magpies.
Elst and our friends.
Fanatic is not in my district because I cut off at Woodland.
Oh, okay.
So Woodland is the topper there.
So then Crafty and
Yep. Well, Crafty,
Three Rivers
Crafty's on the verge of not being in the district.
Gotcha.
I think Crafty's in the 6 because that is the dividing line.
We're not alcoholics here, everybody. Relax. It's okay.
Well, I'm going to have to say, I'm not going to lie to people. I like craft beer and proud to have them in the district.
It seems to be right there on the in or on the edge of your district.
I have Gypsy Circus, the donut shop.
The old Elkmont's in there. Which is Elkmont
Yeehaw.
no more.
I've taken a tour. They're going to be opening up in September.
Grifters. I'm not happy with them.
What?
I mean, I don't care. I've told this story a million times.
Okay.
I want to have a Knoxville signature brewery, and right now Yeehaw is it.
Okay.
Where do they brew?
Johnson. So, they're going to brew right there in my neighborhood.
That's just
found in the fourth. Hashtag found in the fourth. Sorry. It's I'm just telling you, they're going to be brewing there. They're doing it right now. Chris, who was the brewmaster at Elkmont,
what's
their
corporate
be there.
What's their corporate address?
Johnson City.
Exactly.
But I've met the new manager there, and then or whatever her name is, whatever her title is, and then the manager is one of my neighbors. There's a lot of home.
Again, I have no issue with
people.
them being there. I just want I want a Knoxville brand beer. That's one of those that this is Knoxville's signature. I have family in Fort Collins. When you go to Fort Collins, you go to New Belgium.
Okay.
If you're a beer person at all, you go to New Belgium. There's like 150 breweries in Fort Collins. But if you're on a brew tour, New Belgium is the stop. And I would love to see one of those here, whether it be Fanatic or Elster, one of the ones that
we have some great options here.
And we do. And we just don't have quite the. And I think it's one of those. I think it's a greater issue with the industry is there's so many. It's hard to get to a New Belgium place where you're a nationally distributed local craft beer. So that's a hurdle for people to get over. And Yeehaw is probably the closest one to it, but they're not in Knoxville.
I'm happy to welcome Yeehaw to the 4th District, and they've got some exciting plans. I've been really excited to see and preview what they're doing. Yeah, some really great businesses and jobs in the 4th District.
And it has. I remember when. Apparently, this is my lesson in life: is that wherever I've lived in Knoxville, sometime after I leave is when they start doing a lot of because I live right over there on what is it called? That weird little split that goes off Broadway towards the east. Right at 640, like you get 640.
Taswell?
Yeah.
That's also part of my district?
Yeah, Taswell at Central High School.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jacksboro up there.
Lived right back there for a while.
Yeah. So you lived in the 4th District?
Yeah, I did.
What
Definitely.
street did you live in?
Nathaniel?
Yeah.
It's like 75 feet long. It's just
Sure,
a little corner in this. It's a cute old neighborhood, little duplex or whatever. It's a fun house.
Yeah.
I
have
lived there.
constituents on there. They're about to get traffic humps there. Okay. Not on Nathaniel, but on Wood Lake and Gaineswood, I think. We had a planning meeting the other day with the neighbors about that. So very familiar with Nathaniel. One of my constituents lives there.
I mean, there's like 7 houses on there, but
on Nathaniel.
Well, we were a duplex, so that makes it 8. But anyway, we were talking about running for
office,
and and I guess you'd mentioned the baseball stadium for or against is not part of your platform. What are your top items on your platform that you do want to raise attention to and put your stamp on as far as what your goals are as in re-election?
Well, sure. So the things that I talk about in my campaign are the things that I hear about from my constituents, because I ran the first time on listening to people and taking their input into the decisions that we make. Can't make everybody happy all the time, but sometimes you make some collaborative decisions. When I go out and talk to constituents in the district, particularly like let's take Fountain City, for example, they want to be able to get downtown on their bike or walk. People want to be able to walk to their schools. They want to be able to walk to a park or the library. So I have been working on, and it is not so I've been in office 3 years and some change now. It's not a 3-year project to get the Broadway corridor connected with some sidewalks and greenways. And there's some in progress that's happening. We're in design phase to connect the greenway there at Broadway Shopping Center from Fulton High School down to First Creek. Some discussions about expanding it further down and connecting it down through the 6th District, down towards downtown East Knoxville, Magnolia. There's a new greenway going in over that direction to the Botanical Gardens, which is not my district. Sidewalks last night on council. I know last time I was here, you were asking me examples of what we vote on at a council meeting. We voted on the contract. I can't remember the name of the company, but it's irrelevant. Voted on the contract for Coker Avenue. There's going to be a greenway going in there, which is a beaten path. Have a constituent who doesn't have kids actually advocated to the city that this was a missing segment of sidewalk that needed to happen because it's where the Belmorris kids are walking to school and the Fulton kids in 2 separate directions. Right. And there's a lot of traffic and no sidewalk, and they need to get to school, and they're all in the parent responsibility zone. So making a safe place for people to walk and get to school or get to, commercial entertainment, business corridors, connecting the community. So that's.
I lived over there once too. I lived literally. We heard Belmorris's bells every morning.
Yeah. So see, you've lived in the 4th District in a couple of places. This is a great place to live.
No, it wasn't.
Oh. Wow, those are fighting words.
It wasn't. I mean, at the time, it was. I mean, it was a functional place to live where I was. We were renting a house. But we didn't do anything. We were either at home amongst our business or we were well outside. We either I mean, it was right after I got out of school, so we were either
when you say out of school, you mean
downtown.
UT?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We either on campus or downtown, but we didn't do. I didn't use the neighborhood by any stretch of the imagination, and that's not to say it's the neighborhood's fault or mine, but
La Esperanza is right there. Did you ever go eat there behind the fire station there at Whittle Springs and Washington Pike?
Not when it was.
Anyway,
I gotta think about it.
If you're over there, go eat at La Esperanza.
Is that the one that's got the sign out front talking about cops kill kids and stuff like that?
That is not La Esperanza. That's a neighbor.
What I'm saying, I'm just trying to put
Yes,
my
correct.
I'm trying to catch the area. Yes, that one.
There is somebody who has a beef with KFD, KPD, and something else that lives next door and has some spray painted handmade signs.
Probably some rural metro issues. I don't like rural metro either, buddy. Whoever you are.
Actually, I think they might have something against rural metro too.
I mean, just guessing.
Just guessing. Happens to be a sign I passed by. Yes, La Esperanza is right there between the fire station and the angry signage.
Okay. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is it fire station? I'm lost on the fire
Yeah,
station.
it's a
part.
beautiful fire station there. It's one of the historic.
Oh, it's around the
fire
corner.
station.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like on the corner is
playground.
that old like transmission center or whatever. Yeah, I know where we're talking about.
Yep.
I went in
So-
there and used the market part of it, but I never ate there. I never got food. out of
Yeah,
it.
it's great. I like to go eat there. Actually, Father's Day, because I'm
See-
so busy knocking doors, my husband got about 8 packages of cookies from the market there.
My this is how long ago it was. Is the Weigels was still right there across the street when I lived there.
Okay.
That was like Weigel's number 3 or something like that. That was one of the oldest still operating Weigels in
Yeah,
town.
there's not a Weigel's there. Max Pharmacy is there.
Yeah, so
Local owned business, local pharmacy.
yeah, right behind where Anyway, that's my neighborhood. Okay, so
Okay,
sidewalks,
digress.
streetways.
I'm glad to know you like.
That's what we do.
So walkability is one big thing that people ask me about in the community. Traffic and speeding is something that's not necessarily part of the platform, but just that kind of lends to that. People want to be safe and walk and get places. Let's see, what else is the platform? We've brought over 900 jobs to the 4th District during the time I've been on council. So I think I've heard something about the city needs to do this, that, and the other to bring jobs in. I challenge anybody to top what the 4th District's done. Of course, the mall site's getting redeveloped and bringing in 700 jobs with benefits.
All right, so let me ask you the question this
Sure.
way: is what has been done to bring those 900 jobs in?
What has been done?
What are the things that you can say? These are the things that we did in the 4th District that brought these 900 jobs in.
So if you start with, we'll go through all 3 of them.
Okay.
Because there's 3 major employers that have expanded and or brought jobs into the 4th District, which puts me ahead of any other district.
Are you
in
counting the
city.
safety center? Does that count?
No, that's not in the 4th District. It's in the 5th.
Oh,
Apparently
what?
correct.
Where's the old St. Mary's Safety Center?
That is in the 5th District. I can stand in the 4th District and wave at it.
But Central's on one side and Broadway's on the other, and it's in between the two.
Woodland is the dividing
Woodland is the line.
point.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Jeez, that's craziness. Okay, sorry.
It is craziness. We can get you a map.
I've been thinking about getting a county map and a city map and putting them on the wall back behind you as the backdrop in here.
Yeah. So, St.
But
Mary's.
they're going to be brand new here by the end of the year anyway, so I'm going to wait till then.
No, that's true.
Or
That's true.
early next year, whenever that kicks in.
February-ish is, I think, when it's going to happen. We're having a city council workshop on redistricting September 2nd, Thursday, 5-ish. There you go.
Duly noted.
Duly noted. Okay, so back to what were we talking about? Jobs.
Yes.
What happened to make those happen?
How did you make these jobs appear?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that goes into that. The chamber, of course, worked very hard, which they get funding from the city to try and attract businesses to come here. Knoxville is clearly a very appealing city that people want to live in. We have beautiful view of the mountains, we have rivers, and we have parks and connectivity and things for people to do and a great climate. We have a low tax rate and a reasonable cost of living here.
That's on our
okay. It's a
agenda.
lead in. We'll get to it, man. Look. I
She's
just wanted,
working with me.
I'm working with you. I have brought, as a good librarian, I brought a print copy, but I also have my laptop. If you really want to get into some reference drills on the budget.
We'll see how
That's okay.
how time goes.
That's okay. I love to respond to some of the comments I've heard of late and talk about that. But anyway,
My comments or just comments in general?
all of it.
Okay,
All
because
of
I'm
it,
very, I'm. This is okay. We'll
We'll
get
get there.
in a second.
One thing at a time. Let's talk about jobs. The chamber's been working very hard to attract employers that will expand and attract different employers that will be businesses that will couple well so that existing employers here can expand. So say you have a company here that has, 80 employees and they just need a widget maker that would come here, and then they would be 250 employees because they need this other component to,
Correct.
make their widget be. The chamber's been working on that under the newer leadership, and the city is in partnership with the chamber. So that's one thing. We've built Knoxville to be a very appealing city, and so people are wanting to come here. We've been pulling businesses out of places like Chicago. Amazon needed sites here, and they needed multiple sites here, because also I'd like to clear up some fallacies that are spreading about my particular role in the Amazon. I heard somebody was spreading the rumor that I voted against it, or I did something to make them not come here. So I will just grab that head on and say that's just not true. They were always simultaneously looking at two sites that would work in tandem with each other, and they worked out something in Blount County to do their large trucking center. And then they're going to do the last mile center, which is a model they use across the country. So those are going to be the Sprinter trucks that go out into the neighborhoods and make the delivery at your doorstep. And they chose to do that there at that site.
Right. So if you live in apartments or a gated community, help those drivers out by making sure there's a way to access it, because they get fired by email if they don't get their deliveries on time.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of stuff on that going on right now that bothers me a lot. But
okay,
that's all water under the bridge.
Water under the bridge. Here's what I'm going to say.
At least for us.
When I ran in 2017 knocking on doors, the future of the mall site was one of the number one concerns on doors. And my commitment was to work on zoning or any other barriers that would impede development of that site and whatever it took to foster. So we worked with the previous owners of that site to get them zoning, because they were going to do a mixed-use development. That didn't pan out. And yeah, I'm not even going to go down those weeds, but the best thing for that site was to change ownership, and it did. And I'm very excited that it changed ownership. Amazon, of course, it was one of the worst kept secrets, but they were very good to work with during the process. They needed a rezoning to be able to do what they needed to do. And the other thing is there's existing apartments that are very affordable, very nice, beautiful view, by the way, owned by a local property owner, Mr. Brown. And the community was concerned about traffic. So I basically collaborated with the community, Mr. Brown, attorneys, and representatives for Amazon to make sure that site happened, and everybody, got heard in the process. And they got their rezoning, and they're coming, and they're done with their demo. And so they're going to bring 700 plus jobs.
Okay. So structural question on that
Sure.
that topic. So when somebody floats out the statement that Lauren voted against whatever zoning or whatever,
sure,
that you're saying is false, which I fully believe you on.
There's video to prove otherwise. So.
Is there a print record of council agenda items? Is there a print record?
There's video.
I understand there's video. I'm just saying.
There's print radio.
I mean, record. is because this is something that I've learned on some state stuff that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Is there are certain committees and stuff in state stuff where a verbal vote by the chair is enough, and so that nobody actually goes on record officially for certain votes. And so anyway, my question being, is there a written record that says on the rezoning item, including the Easttown Mall property or whatever the technical name is, that this was the vote 6-4, whatever, 6-4-1?
I believe it was 9-0, but don't quote me on that. But I can tell you I made the motion to pass. I'm almost positive.
Okay, but there's no, but there isn't a print version of the record that says not only the number but who voted what. I mean, obviously it's 9-0. It's easy.
Yeah, it's 9-0, and you can watch the video. But yeah, no, it doesn't say Ryder voted this, but it'll say Ryder made the motion. Okay. To my memory, I made the motion.
Okay. I'm just then this is not on the particular topic. It's just that hit my.
Sure.
Again, for me, there's a lot of structure and the civics part of what's going on.
Right.
That when certain things jump out, I want to ask the question, because I would like, if we had a better journalist than me that really wanted to dig into said issue because people are talking about it, that they could go back and say, here's the agenda item, here's the voting record of, at the time, whoever it was, seat 1, seat 2, seat 3, right, or seat 4 voted yes or whatever.
Right.
So I'm, again, just curious about that.
Yeah, aspect. And I'll tell you what the misinformation is. First off, people have to find a reason to try and break me down. It's a campaign, right? They want to say, what's wrong with me? What's your issue? Why are you running against her? So they go around apparently and say, well, she made that, she was against that, which is not true. I was facilitating and making sure that the community had a voice in that, and making sure that the apartments next door got their concerns heard. And Amazon at the same time, though they were not known and declared as Amazon, they were working on what was going to go at the Blount site and what was going to go at the Knoxville site. And their original design was to put the semi trucks up underneath the apartments, and the ownership local of the apartments. And I also had conversations with the reps that were repping for the purchase at the time, and was like, look, no one's going to want to sleep in these apartments, and we're going to render them useless if there's trucks underneath them. So Amazon was very accommodating. They do not want to come into a community if there's any pushback. And so they flipped their design, and we were very happy with that. The surrounding constituents, those are my constituents. I represent them. I'm here to work for them and protect their property values and have their considerations heard. And which is, by the way, it's a big thing that council does. I think a lot of people are confused about what council does. We play a huge role in zoning, and it is my job to try, and a lot of times we're mediating and negotiating two sides in a zoning issue. Sometimes you're collaborating and not everybody gets 100% of what they want. Sometimes one side gets 100% and somebody gets 0%, right? But that's a lot of what we're doing is zoning issues. That's the role of council, is zoning issues. So anyway, I just want to make that clear.
No,
for everyone.
I think that it's taken me almost 2 years to really understand that fully. But I mean, I think as well as county commission, I think the number one most day-to-day impactful thing that either body does is zoning. And
that's absolutely right, because if
it's the least talked about and the least fun, unless it's something
it's not real
specifically
sexy.
exciting. Right.
It's not real sexy to a lot of people.
Right. Unless it's a baseball stadium or digging holes underneath the mountain to park trucks in, which sounds actually really cool. I wish we would have done it. But, I understand the apartment issue. But
So anyway, it was just like, we constantly keep talking about how we have a housing shortage and we need to have housing. So let's not throw an entire apartment complex under the bus to get 700 jobs. So Mr. Brown was like, what do I do? What do I do? And, he really cares about his residents, and as well as that's his investment. And so Amazon, in the end, it was Amazon. They were very willing to accommodate that. They flipped the design, and all we did was ask them to just put it in writing, because a deal's not a deal if it's not in writing, right? So, so that was all. I was just trying to broker something that made everybody good neighbors, because that's what zoning is all about, is being good neighbors to the best of your ability within the law, etc. And what really surprised me, literally, I can't remember if it was hours before the vote or the day before the vote, everybody was happy. I've been like, okay, so you guys are talking to Mr. Brown, like, your lawyer's talking to them, et cetera, et cetera. And they called me up and they said, hey, they want to talk to you. And that was the first time they ever put me on the phone with Amazon reps. I mean, I knew it was Amazon, but that was when they put me on the phone with Amazon reps. And I think earlier that day they had talked to the mayor as well, and like literally revealed, like, we are the Amazon people, you're not just talking to the middleman now. Here's the new design. Let's shoot it over to you in email. We've decided to totally do something different at this site. And I said, and instead of 1,200 jobs, it's going to be 700 jobs. I was like, whoa, we didn't ask you to do that. They said, well, we didn't do it because you asked us to. We wanted to. This is just what we decided was best. This was best for the site. We were maxing it out before. It was a lot to fit in. And they were doing blunt, and it's just their business plan is their business plan. Lauren Ryder didn't make them. I'm not powerful enough to dictate the world to Amazon.
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I think it might be in your political interest to at least pretend like you are.
Sure. Okay, fine. If somebody wants to pretend I'm that big and powerful, that's fine. But literally just trying to make people good neighbors and trying to make sure, had some great conversations. They were fabulous to work with. They're working with the city right now on the bus stop that's going to be there, so that we make sure, there's a variety of different ways to get to the jobs that are there. And the other cool thing about those jobs, I mean, you can sit here and debate whether you like Amazon or not. I'm not going down that path right now. And then we'll talk about the other employers. They're going to run those Sprinter trucks that go out into the neighborhood. I don't think they leave until like 10, 12, and then they come back 7, 8. So they're staggering. So it's not interrupting with, 9 to 5, 8 to 5 traffic. So it's staggered around people's schedules. There's some road projects that are going to happen. That's another big concern in my district. So we've been working with a historic African-American neighborhood that's over there past the Target, as well as all the other property owners. And there's a big road project that's going in there to kind of alleviate some of the traffic. And it's going to go out to the county line. So as a council member, I am literally this intermediary trying to pull together the community and the neighborhood people, the engineering department, the consultants that we're using from the design firm,
right.
And just trying to think about everybody's needs of how do we accommodate the traffic, how do we accommodate the business that's coming in, because we want the jobs. And we want the site redeveloped, and it's 73 or 78 acres. So a huge opportunity. So what did the city of Knoxville do to make that happen? We're working with them on a bus stop, and right now the discussion is who's going to pay for that. Made an ask like, hey, you got a great site, you're redeveloping it. Could you connect the greenway that went in at the Walmart? And maybe like one day we'll have a greenway. We'll connect people from the Walmart, over from like to the Food City, and there's housing back behind there, or to the Target, and people would have a way to recreate or ride a bike to Walmart or whatever. There's tons of housing around there. You shouldn't have to pack up your bike and drive it to the riverside to get on a greenway. We should be able to do it and connect things. So anyway, we had a great site. We happen to be a place that's a wonderful place to live with low tax rate and low cost of living. And it's also a site that's at 640 and I-40. We're kind of perfectly poised in East Knoxville, in East Tennessee, for a company like that to come. And actually, so the two other major employers that brought jobs that happen to be in the 4th District, they are also revolve around trucking. Fraley Schilling is out at Straw Plains, which is all commercial in the 4th District. There's no residences in the district. And they're adding an office building that's 102 jobs, and they did get a jobs pilot. So they get a payment in lieu of taxes, which is basically they pay into the pot what they would pay for the increased tax. So they're paying taxes on what it's appraised at right now, and that additional amount of what it would be appraised for goes to pay for the payments to make the building affordable, and they bring 102 jobs. There's a clawback in that, so that if they do not deliver, if they create, say, 89 jobs, it's scaled back. They don't get the tax break, the tax freeze on the property.
Right. So, okay. So I think that was one of the better definitions of how a pilot program works. Mm-hmm. Because I always knew the phrase payment in lieu of taxes. And so it says, so if I have $1 million property in place and I'm already doing stuff there, mm-hmm. and I want to make it into a $5 million property, mm-hmm. the difference in taxes between the 1 and 5 million. Mm-hmm. So that $4 million,
you're paying the taxes as if it was still 1 million.
Right. So the actual taxes paid is still the 1 million. Mm-hmm. What would have been the additional tax rate, I, as the business owner, whomever, mm-hmm. can use to pay off the loan it took me to buy that, or to pay for that extra $4 million.
Yeah, for your construction.
Right. At minimum, if I want to pay on top of that, that's my business or whatever. But right. I developed the property. Instead of paying additional property tax, I can use what I would have been paying in taxes to pay off mm-hmm. the construction property. Good. Okay.
And you bring 102 jobs, and those are people that potentially live in the community. They spend their dollars here. They're going to stop by the Walmart or the Target or the whatever, and they're going to spend their tax dollars. They're going to go out to eat. They're going to go to Elst.
They're going to get different. They're going to get their child tax credit early and spend that money and all the other stuff that we spend money on.
I don't know. I'm no expert on that.
I got a random check from Joe Biden, and I'm like, I wish I hadn't, but I got to figure out how to cancel it. It was a bad stab. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay. I won't go down that path. Not part of my platform. So I'm moving right along. Then another employer that's come to the district is Axle Logistics, which, oh my gosh,
it's a cool looking building, at least.
It's a cool looking building. So let's start with that. It was a blighted, vacant building the whole time I've lived here and before. Used to be a Ford dealership. Cool building, lots of cool history. Vacant, blighted. We had all these underutilized, underperforming properties in the downtown area that have done nothing but improve over the past decades, in spite of what some people running for council may say. Knoxville is a terrible place. Nobody wants to be here. That's just not the case. People, the permits request to the city for commercial stuff is up 400%. People are coming here to the rate that we don't have enough housing. So I'm not buying into this narrative, this false narrative that nobody wants to be here. Got to make my stab in the middle of the thing. So Axle Logistics, let's talk about them. Those guys are South Knox guys. They went to UT. They studied logistics, and they are basically these middleman guys that connect the mom and pop truck drivers with loads that need to be delivered. And it is, wow, you go in there and they're all about work hard, play hard. And they've got, a putting green, and they have lunch, and they have food trucks, and they have like a rec room for their employees and workout center. So before, after lunchtime, you want to do it. And then they're up there working hard. It looks like the New York Stock Exchange. So they're like teams of 6, and they're just up there, making their sales, and they get this giant, anyway, it's wow. I don't know what's proprietary about what they do, but what they do is super cool. And they literally just bought the next block because they're about to expand. So The 4th District is killing it on the jobs front. We got Yeehaw, we got Axel Logistics, we got Amazon, we got Fraley Schilling expanding, we got the Beer Castle, we got the L straight up the road, we got, and so it's really proud and exciting. We approved another beer permit last night for something up in Fountain City that's opening up there too, and Sweet Peas just moved up to to Fountain City. They're still keeping their Old City / Jackson Avenue location. So there's so much exciting things going on. There's all these young families. There's so many people that want to live in the 4th District. That the real challenge right now for the 4th District, so that leads me to like points in the platform, is to continue looking for ways and to support housing. While also considering the fact that we have existing neighborhoods. There's certain charm and things that people like about our neighborhoods and why they want to be there. So you got to, consider the charm of the neighborhoods, but also look for opportunities to grow. Because right now, if you want to buy a house in my neighborhood or anything nearish, you need to know somebody to know it's coming on the market so you can get a heads up. And that may be the case in your neighborhood too, because that's just Knoxville right now.
I have at least 2 mailers and 5 phone calls a week.
Yeah, I got a text
Hey,
message.
you want to sell your house?
Yeah, and I'm like, $2 million, and I still don't want to talk to you. Will you not? Yesterday, I get this phone call. It says potential spam, and I'm like, maybe it's wrong. Like maybe it's campaign related.
Yeah, I answered it for fun too, but
and then I was sorry because they're like, oh, do you own this? You want to sell it? I'm like, no, I don't have time for this nonsense. Stop trying to buy my real estate.
I mean, yeah, like I enjoy it. I find it to be my civic duty. Because the day job, I'm in the car most of the time. I'm driving from point to point.
So you're like,
and so I'll take them and waste as much of their time as I can.
Yeah,
you're welcome, Knoxville. It's 5 less phone calls I get out a day.
Yeah,
it's worth and it humors me.
I'm glad. I'll give him your number next time. It's obnoxious and it's really annoying. I'm not into the house flippers.
I'm curious how I mean, I know that it's all database stuff and it's all if you know what you're doing or you know the right people or you buy the numbers, it's out there. It's just like we were talking about KGIS on the Big Show one night, and
right.
One of the guys looks up and he's like, I didn't know I didn't know all this was public record. And I was like, yeah, man, it's all public record. I think it even has an email on it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I get emails too, but those my spam folder works those pretty hard for me. But
yeah, no, it's kind of obnoxious. I got one text today, one phone call yesterday, and I'm like, buzz off, leave me alone.
Moral of the story is we need housing without ruining
what we have. And I think that takes good leadership on council because those are about zoning decisions. And I will touch on, the quote unquote red tape talking point of can't build anything here because of red tape. I have a building that I redid, and I kept asking the head of the building department, which, by the way, I have a great relationship with him. We like to joke around, and he's very good to talk to. Hey, how long does it take to get a permit? 2 weeks. How long does it take to get a permit? 2 weeks. How long does it take to get a permit? 2 weeks. Hey, it's been 9 weeks. I need to get my permit.
Right.
So I've lived through it. I've been through it. Like, what's stalling out me getting a permit? I knocked on a door the other night and talked to a constituent. He also was having trouble getting his permit. And so I'm having some calls and trying to facilitate that. And so on that note, this whole time I've been in office, it's like, hey, we have got to figure out what's stalling the process. How do you streamline things? One of the issues that I hear about is the software that we use, where the permitting system goes through and the submittals. Another part of the conversation we've had is how things get submitted, the standardizing. One builder and another architect may submit it differently, so everything needs to be kind of submitted in a standardized way so that the reviewers don't reject something because it was on the wrong page and they were looking for it on a different page. So there needs to be some consumer education, or I should say some public education, whether it's to the architects, the developers, the builders, the homeowners, on how to streamline the process. But there's also going to be a developers roundtable to try and work out the kinks and where the city can make changes, whether it be to the zoning code, not the building code, but the zoning code, because the building code is international and is standard across the board for the most part. Every one of us, city, whatever, international, follow that. Are there changes that we can make to make it a smoother process? But are there, I think I did listen to your podcast with Andrew. He talked about the customer service rep. I had a constituent that applied, the one that I talked to the other night. I had 2 in the last week that have issues that I'm trying to help them with. is he needed to go to the planning commission first because of the type of zoning that he has. And instead, you think, I need a building permit. So you apply for a building permit and you get turned down for it. But really, the people in that particular zone out in Holston Hills need to go to the planning commission first.
Right.
And get their site plan review. Then they turn in their site plan and go on their merry way. So it slows down the process. So it's like better education about the pathways to get your permit and dealing with maybe some steps to make it a smoother process. Totally have lived through it myself, acknowledge that it's not perfect, and have conversations with the staff at the city like, we've got to make this better.
Yeah, I mean, I've had issues in a number of different, business license or stuff where it's just like, you check the box instead of putting an X in it, and now we're talking about, well, it's not quite filled out correctly, so I need you to redo it, but the next review date is
right
a month away.
Right.
And it's, if
right.
if the point is to grow business, that's really not.
So let me talk about sometimes these things are boring and simple changes that need to happen. For example, there are people, if you have a property that happens to be governed by historic zoning, but you need a variance. It used to be you couldn't apply to historic zoning until you went through through the BZA for a variance, and the historic zoning meeting was in the morning, and the BZA meeting was in the afternoon. So you had to wait another month. So I was like, hey guys, this is a solvable problem, and so they were like, okay, we'll change the date of when it is. So they did. It came on the council agenda. We voted on it. We changed it. I will say, unfortunately, now it overlaps with council. So if you wanted to go to the BZA meeting and the council meeting, it makes it kind of difficult. But those are the kind of changes that have to happen. It's shifting. Sometimes it's shifting staff. Sometimes it's shifting when a meeting happens. But some of it literally needs to be like, like a pathway finder. Like, if your zoning is this, your first stop is here.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the same joke I make all the time about, I have a particular issue that I know has government involvement. Mm-hmm. Who do I go to? Like, whatever it is, a pothole in the street or a sidewalk issue or X, Y, or Z. And it's as a constituent who has a normal life that does normal day-to-day things. Right. And the generic answer is you call your counselor or you call your commissioner, because that's a starting point. And as I think Larson said it best in all my interviews so far. He's like, a big chunk of the job is switchboard. It's just I'm connecting you to the right people and stuff like that. And I find that to be a good thing on Larson's part and the commissioners and counselors that I've talked to in the same realm. But I feel like that's a Band-Aid to what the issue is, because it is there's so many layers and there's so many different bodies involved that for somebody, who wants to start a business or wants to rebuild X thing on their property or whatever, that kind of, you need to have an education to start, and you don't. The only way I've got the education, at least personally, is by having to barrel through it and deal with it at least once or twice. And then the next time around, it's like, okay, I got to do this one first. I go to this office. I feel like the beer permit, you got to go between the police department and the city county building like 3 times to get the paperwork done.
Did you get a beer permit?
I've gotten a couple.
Okay.
I've been, let's see how many.
Okay. So you've done the process in the city?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, it's like, you have to go to background check, and then you have to go to class here, and then you have to have this paperwork that's signed off by KPD come with your packet to the city council building, and then but some of that comes back with your fingerprinting background check thing from KPD. It's just a big back and forth, and it's like, well, once you get it, it's a little easier. But if you're new to it, if you're like, hey, I've got this cool idea thing that I want to do. I want to start a podcast, and I want to build a beautiful studio downtown and this, that, and the other. If you haven't done it before, it is you have to be stubborn to get through the process. And it's like, well, again, if the point is we're trying to, encourage development, encourage growth, encourage these kind of things, having people have to pound their head against the wall is usually not the way to encourage. And so, I mean, I think we're agreeing on it. I think there's definitely some high spots in the rug, for lack of a better word, in the system that need to be ironed out. And, and again, I think, like you said, moving some meetings around. Again, I think
getting some new software that helps make it less chunky and clunky.
And I think I at least some of the conversation I've heard around it is it feels like there's a mentality, and I've experienced it a little bit too, where whatever zoning office or whatever it is, it's like, this rigid framework that I have to work in, and it's just like, you know, there's not a sense of I'm here to help you get this thing. It's I'm here to stamp and check and either approve or disapprove and go on to the next one. That's my job in whatever office.
Right.
And so, you know, and that's just that, as Roberto said, it's a customer service mentality that isn't there, because that's not really the job. At least it doesn't seem to be the job as it is taught or trained for, I suppose is the word to put it.
So I'm going to try and pick my words. So first off, I'm going to say, I think there's a lot of really great city employees, and I think there's a lot of people that are maxed out. I think a lot of city operations are done with a very skeletal crew. I'm going to be blunt with you. And if you, I'm just going to tap in and tiptoe into that tax rate revenues at the city discussion. If you look at the city, in the city budget, it tells you the number of employees the city has. It has actually gone down. It has not changed. So things inflate in cost. Things get layered on. The city employees are expected to do more things, and there aren't more employees to do the work. So they're all like doing more things, and more is expected of them. So I just want to make that pitch before I say, with the permitting process, because I do have familiarity with it, and I talk to and hear from a lot of constituents that have issues, whether it's a residential permit and a homeowner, or whether it's an architect, a builder, or a developer. The city staff gets it, and they process, and I think they do their best job to their ability and the tools that we give them. Okay? If we don't give them the right tools and the right resources, they do the best they can with what we give them within the budget that we have. And they decline yours because you didn't turn in whatever site elevations or whatever, right? So it gets turned down and it comes back to you. There is no skin off the employee's back. You know what I'm saying? They're not on commission.
Right.
That it's going to take you X number of dollars more for your architect to go back and respond to the comments. It's the nature of the game. So how do we have like a customer service point person, or what is the process or the tools or the resources to make it better on the person on the outside, the person that wants the permit, and the staff?
Right.
Because personally, I think having them review things 2 and 3 times is not sometimes people go into 3 and 4 reviews. I think that's a waste of staff time, because while they're reviewing something for the 3rd or 4th time, they could be on to the next review, right? That's
Right.
taking up review time. So there's just no skin in the game for them. I'm not saying that there aren't.
Right.
And so how do we make? There's definitely a desire to make it better.
Right. How do we? I mean, this is something I talk about a lot in
Yeah.
a lot of different issues. It's an incentives game. We got to figure out how to incentivize it correctly to get the results that we all want. And, you know, at least, I mean, the impression I'm getting, at least right now, is that the incentive's not there for the result of we want more people to have access to permits and whatever they want to do. Not that we want them to skip to skip steps or anything, but we want to make it easier and more functional for them. And the incentive inside a lot of these departments is not that.
And I want the outside user, the client, the customer, to know better how to turn in the right drawings, site elevations, plans, details, zoning info, thicknesses, heights,
Well, see, because this
whatever,
one, right.
so that it isn't like, well, you just failed review because you didn't give me all this intel.
Right. Right.
Right?
You need to fill out all the boxes and stuff first. And I don't know whether it's I could produce some YouTube videos for the city if you want me to. We could do a thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's all, it's education. So, I mean, I work at Pellissippi and we do a lot of that, little educational videos. And let me just say, in defense of, you know, we're talking about government, the big old bad government and the bureaucracy and making you get a permit and making you go through process. I work at Pellissippi, which I guess is government too, because we're state, right? But I work at a college. There's private schools, there's public schools. It's the same thing. You were talking about confusion and not knowing the processes and do you know when to go to the bursar's office? Do you know when to go to the registrar? When to go to the financial aid person? When to go? I watch this every day at Pellissippi, and we are constantly working on how to improve the process, make it easier for our students so we can retain them, so they can make good grades, so they know don't drop that class because you're going to jeopardize this. There's a lot of
Oh,
information.
yeah,
to try.
nothing is clearer than a course catalog at a university.
So I'd say, the narrative that it's hard to know how to navigate the system is the same at college as it is like figuring out how to get a permit. So in essence, I have both of those things going on in my life where I see it every day. So, so just that. I just want to make it clear that for us to expect the city employees to be able to turn permits around and get things done, we have to give them the right tools, the right resources. We have to give the end customer the right tools, the right resources, the right education to make sure things get turned in.
Okay.
So that's
All right,
my pitch about that.
All right, forget your campaign. Let's talk taxes.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay. So I'm going to start with saying it's real interesting. I've run twice. I ran in 2017 and won. And clearly that got me where I am today. Nobody ever said on a door, when I say, what concerns do you have? What are your, what issues? And it is amazing to me, this turnaround, these older constituents, I go to their door and they're like, well, I'm really concerned about the tax rate. Well, that's really interesting, Miss Smith. Last time I was here, you were concerned about potholes. But there's a narrative that has been created to base campaigns on, that our constituents are concerned about the tax rate that has not moved. But what has moved, because I listened to your podcast, what has moved is inflation and the assessor. Okay? I'm not blaming the tax assessor from the county. I started looking at some numbers and taking like somebody's their tax payment from 10 years ago. I looked at different streets in my district and plug them into an inflation calculator. And you know what didn't keep up with inflation? The amount of taxes that they're paying. So, and I could open up the spreadsheet. I don't know that I'm prepared and I don't want to be here all day and suck up mine and your time. But if I go to different streets in my neighborhood, in my district, and plug in like two random, I was literally picking random addresses. Like, let's pick this address on this street and one further down the street and plug them in at what they paid in 2010 versus 2020. And it didn't keep up with inflation. And so, okay, when we talk about taxes, the rate hasn't changed. And I realized I listened to your podcast and you called some of the narrative that Gloria Johnson put out as BS, which, by the way, she was with me and she was like, now tell me how this goes, Lauren. So I'm going to just be blunt. I talked Gloria through that because I'm knocking on doors. I'm like, God, what is going on with this? This is a narrative to base a campaign on to run against me. Because you can't turn around and say, I disagree with that vote Lauren had on July whatever. Because that's, if somebody's going to run against me, what is it you disagree with me that I did? I've been on council for 3.5 years. Point to the votes. Where do you disagree with me? How would you have voted different than me? Instead, a certain person formed a PAC and has candidates running against all of us. And they got to come up with something. So let's go around and create the boogeyman. Little straw man over here called the tax rate. When you look at the numbers and you start looking at the charts, okay, what have we done? We've paid down debt. We have built up the fund balance, which is the rainy day fund. We've paid 75% of the budget is fire, police, it's staff, okay? So if you want to start talking about taxes and freezing the tax rate, I want to hear what those candidates are going to cut. Is it parks? Is it greenways? Are we going to stop paving the roads? Am I going to go tell Miss Smith now that I'm sorry we can't pave potholes anymore? We're going to have to let all those staff go. We are staffing police with overtime because we can't recruit and fill those positions because it hasn't been a fun time for police lately. So we have added, when the chief has asked us for funding for recruitment, we've done that. We've increased the number of academies that we've had to be in a continual recruitment to try and fill those police positions. So if you want to start talking about cutting taxes in an area why are these companies coming here? Why is Fraley Schilling opening their offices here instead of Indiana? Seth, why is Fraley Schilling opening their offices here instead of Indiana?
I don't know what Fraley Schilling does, but I'm guessing
they're the trucking company at Straw Plains. What do you think the answer is, Seth?
I mean, you're at the intersection of 75, 40, and 81, so it'd be...
There's a lot of interstates in Indiana. I used to live there 8 years.
I mean...
So why do they want here instead of Indiana?
I mean, I know the answer you asked me to tell you, and it is a low cost of living location.
And low taxes. That's right. I've been in office 3.5 years, and not one person until this campaign has told me they were concerned about taxes. So it's a narrative. It's a false narrative.
So the only part of that strikes me as potentially honest. I'm not saying it is or isn't.
You talking about me or that narrative?
That narrative
Okay.
that strikes me as potentially honest is that if we're talking about, as we were speaking earlier about the housing shortage that we have and the cost of homes and the way the presumed values of homes as they're going up, and assuming we have a reassessment period coming up, when we have a significant change in assessment, that is going to have a significant change on people's tax obligation.
Okay.
That's the only part of the narrative that I could truly see why today is different than 4 years ago.
So the answer is no. So there's the state equalization law.
Right.
And it says that a municipality, I'm paraphrasing it. I did look it up the other day because I listened to your podcast and you said I haven't read the law, and I was
she's figured out like how to make me happy and not get upset. Just repeat that you've listened to the podcast 1,000 times. I'm gonna be a super happy camper.
So listen, let me just tell you, I'm a librarian. I was a research librarian. It's all about evidence-based medicine and looking things up. Okay, I don't just like pull it out of my head. It's actually data-based. All right, that's the way you should do things. I also believe it's been said on the campaign trail that City Council doesn't need a librarian, but I think I proved my worth. By the way, there are national listservs that celebrate the fact that this Knoxville City Council has a librarian. Anyway, decisions should be made on evidence. They should be made on facts.
Right.
And that's what I do, whether it be zoning or tax decisions or anything else.
Right. So again, for me,
let's go back to the equalization law.
Right. Trying to understand that whole thing is that if my house is, I bought my house at say 150 and it reassesses in 22 at, I mean, hell, at this rate, it might be up in the near 300.
Okay, let's use big numbers. It's not, but it'll be easier for you small numbers. Let's say your house was appraised at $75,000, because that's realistic for some things in my district. Let's say a house was appraised at $75,000 the last go round. This time around, because of inflation, because of the crazy market that we're in, it's appraised for $100,000. That's 25, or don't get me on the percentages.
It's a 33% increase.
It's a chunk, which is what was quoted to the Compass Knox
at about 30%.
So about 30%. So that's a good example. So your house appraises from 75 to 100. So right now what they're saying and what we're seeing in the market is that everything's going to go up. But the state equalization law is that we are not allowed to benefit from that. We're not allowed to collect excess tax dollars. I can't benefit from the fact that your house grew and inflated in value. So the tax rate will get adjusted down. Right. And the estimate to the Compass Knox, I'm not making up numbers, the thrown out number that got published, I haven't called Whitehead myself, was 2.22. The current tax rate is 2.46. And I heard you say, well, that's BS because, and then they raise it up. I don't know what we're going to do.
I'm not saying you do. No, that's not what I said. What I said is that again, on the narrative part of the conversation, the impression that I get is that there is it's at minimum a soft brag that our city tax rates are going down, that it's a claim of credit for having done something.
I don't know. I'm not claiming credit for it. I'm fact sharing.
But okay. But again, one of my issues with that is that as a lay person who is not super educated on how these things work, obviously, is that I see a chart like that, and what it feels like to me is that, especially when the mayor's office puts that out and the different people that are putting it out are showing that off, as they're saying, look, we're lowering taxes, which is not true.
We're not lowering tax rate. We're not lowering the tax. We're not lowering the taxes.
Right. You're lowering the tax rate.
And you look at the chart, it's flatlined. It's flatlined. We're not allowed by state law to collect more. The only way we can collect more money.
Right. But again, the assumption being that when these new appraisals start coming out and the state, and we follow state law, the tax rate is going to go down even further. And again, it's a narratives conversation that we started this with, and that's where I'm caught up in it, is because it feels to me like this is saying, hey, look at what we have done. And Richard, the reality is we haven't done much of anything because we've been required to do this by the state law as our homes have been increasing in value. When is the last time we voted for a decrease above what is required by the state?
Well, so let me pause you right there and go to my next chart, okay? If you were to go and look
can you message it to me?
I will certainly do that. Here, I'm just gonna. Can I email it to you? Because
Yeah.
this is an email. And it's straight.
So I can put this on the screen for everybody that's
Sure.
actually watching.
What's your email?
Almostinagreement@gmail.com.
Aha. We've emailed before.
Yes, we have.
Okay.
That's how I figured out how to get you here.
Okay. Okay, Seth. So back to these numbers. This is, and I'm not going to say this isn't complicated. So, Seth, here's my frustration. When someone goes to a door and scares my constituent and tells them we're out frivolously spending money, when we're not, we're paying firemen, police, we're paying the guy who comes and cleans up, dead animals, we're paying the people that do brush pickup, we're paying for, your fire protection, we're paying for the services. The city is a service provider, okay? So here, let me give you some facts. This is the chart that you're going to put up there and I'm going to read from. If you're like, what have you guys done and why would anybody pay more in taxes and it hasn't realistically frozen because the number goes up because of inflation, police officer entry-level salary in 2011, so we're going to do 10 years, okay, was $32,775. That's
All right,
now.
sorry for the weird looking at it, but you guys
Sorry.
can all see it now. Okay, so
It went from 30, let's just round it up. Let's go 33 to 40,000, 41. So I'll round up in both ways. Okay? A firefighter's gone from 32 to 38. So, if people want to freeze and cap the taxes and never pay anything different, if your property value is inflating,
okay, again,
and you can sell your house and make more money, do you think we're going to retain firemen and policemen and public works guys and say, hey guys, I know you started back in 2011 at 32,000 and a jug of milk cost you more and a gallon of gas cost you more and it cost you more to buy a house, but suck it, dude, you can still make 32. Sorry, I'm being really frank, but I find the conversation very disingenuous and very frustrating. So I'm going to be blunt. And I'm going to say I am running against a defund the police and public services opponent on both sides. And Seth, the person who started this initiative, that started these candidates, how much do you think that person pays in city taxes for these services? What do you think is a reasonable amount monthly to pay for paved roads, traffic lights, buses, street lights, trying to address the homeless issues with shelters, police, fire. I mean, what have I missed of what the city does? We have different services. You live in the county. I don't know, if you have neighbors in the city because you're on one of these fringe properties. So maybe your neighbor across the street's getting services that you're not. What do you think is a reasonable rate to pay per month for all of those services?
I mean, I would love to break it all the way down and really know that, and I don't know the answer to that. I mean,
so.
This
Let me
is a long
just
way
tell
of not
you,
answering that. It's not nothing. I agree.
It's based on the size of your house by the appraisal of your house, right? So my particular house, my city tax. I'm not even going to talk about my county tax. So the street lights that protected me to get here and made sure nobody crashed into me, the engineers that take care of stormwater, the police, the fire that are going to pull me out of a car when I get into an accident or come take care of somebody when they've had a heart attack. The policemen that are going to go address somebody. I've had 2 recent complaints of people running through the streets naked and on drugs because we have a drug problem here and we have homeless issues and the police are dealing with it every day. We also have the co-responder team that we've added to the budget or added to the police department so that we have social workers to go out. How much does that cost? My particular household, I think my taxes is like $1,200 a year. So I'm paying a little over $100 a year for the privilege of all those services, and you know what? I think that's pretty low.
$100 a month.
Yeah, I think my tax rate is $1,200-ish.
Right, you said $1,200 a year,
So
and then you
it's
said I'm paying
$100
$100 a year. I was just
Yeah,
okay.
It's $100 a month. So the person behind the petition going door to door, what do you think he's paying for all those fabulous services?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he's not a city resident.
No, he's a city resident. So how much do you think he pays for all that fabulous stuff?
I don't know.
Civilized society.
I don't.
$14.83.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty cheap bargain.
All right. Well,
I think it's a
okay.
pretty cheap bargain, and I wouldn't be fighting for a tax freeze to make sure that police officers and firemen don't get their pensions paid in the future, which we're legally obligated to do, and that we can't recruit and fill police officers positions, which we are clearly struggling to do, in spite of the fact that we keep doing things to try and find ways to recruit policemen.
Right.
So
Okay.
That's my tax conversation in a nutshell.
No,
but
that's your-
Seth, I'm
see, but
happy to anytime go through line by line.
That is your that was a campaign tax conversation.
I don't think it was that was Lauren Ryder on taxes.
Okay. Well, that was very
happy
specifically
to do-
about the narrative that is going on in the campaign cycle, which I appreciate the conversation on it, but that was not what I want out of it.
Okay, go for it. I'm happy
I'm
to.
trying again. It's a narrative at play that I'm trying to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that as without a specific, and this is okay. Let me back up. This is a non-campaign question. This is a non.
Sure.
This is just how this thing functions. How do we function on doing X, Y, and Z?
Okay.
And so in this has nothing to do with that petition going around, which I have a lot of questions about, but not for you, for him and or
Sure.
some other people involved. Again, because I'm curious about the process of it, because I like the idea of a ballot initiative that is not.
Then why do you need representative government?
That is public. Is well, I guess
We
this
coulda
guy
put the-
doesn't feel like he has
we
a
could have put
representative
the
government of
we could have
himself.
put the sidewalk that we voted on. We voted on 2 sidewalk contracts last night. We just put that in the ballot. You could spend all week in the ballot voting on everything that we do.
It sounds like that's what our 22 ballot's going to be like anyway, because our 22 ballot's going to be like 70 items.
Well, that sounds painful. How many people do you think are going to follow through to the bitter end?
Well, you got that same animal as how many people vote in city elections. Anyway, not where I'm getting at here. Is my understanding of it, and this you listen to the podcast, so you should be the idea that I'm working with here. Again,
Sure.
This has nothing to do with the tax the tax freeze conversation at all. It's just that if help me make sure I'm understanding correctly, is that if assuming houses appraised for more in this next appraisal period, the tax rate of the city is going to come down, as well as the county for that matter. But we don't care about county. We're just talking about city.
Yeah, let's talk about one at a time.
The rate is going to have to come down by state law. The only way that the rate could stay the same potentially would be that if the city votes to raise the tax rate
I've never.
after that.
If you look at the chart of the tax rates, there's never been a tax rate of that kind of hike. When Rahara raised it, it was 8 cents.
Right, but I'm just saying as far as against the like if what do we say 242 right now or whatever.
It's 246 right now.
246 right now.
Let's say that state law forced it down to the estimate that was published,
Right.
which was 2.22. So we're just going to use that for argument's sake.
Right, but so the only way it stays 242 is that if the city votes to, if the city council and or mayor's office votes to keep it at 242, which would be
Well, we vote
technically
to
a
revert
hike.
it back,
Right, which would technically be a tax hike.
which would be an insane tax hike.
Right,
So,
but again, I'm trying to understand this in the abstract, not
Sure.
in the specific.
Okay.
The history of it being bigger or smaller than
Sure.
ones in the past is unimportant.
Okay.
And again, that's what I'm trying to understand and make sure I'm correct on it. So that if I have, again, we had the $75,000 and $100,000 house, or they raised it to $100,000 house, it's a 30% increase. 242 or 246 to 242 is about a 30-something% decrease. So at the end of the day, that person should still be paying more or less, plus or minus a handful, the same annual property tax rate to the city in dollars, in real dollars, not in rate.
correct, but I can't guarantee you would pay the same amount because my husband was looking too last night. We were looking at different things, and like I have an immediate neighbor whose property tax went down. So some people go down. So let's say you live on a street where there's been a few foreclosures or something burned down and there's some blighted vacant properties or nobody's taking care of anything. Those people's taxes may go down.
I need to get Whitehead in here. I need to understand how he does his job.
You really
anyway.
should because I think
that's a whole
lot,
separate thing, because it's like what my house assesses for and what it's going to sell for are never the same thing.
Right.
So-
And I also think that some of the people that are interpreting as something that we did or didn't do is the conversation is about their assessment. Like I had one constituent was like, well, I'm really worried about my property tax. And when I was doing that analysis where I was looking at different streets and I was like plugging it into the inflation calculator, I'm like, well, this didn't meet inflation. This didn't meet inflation. This didn't meet inflation. My property didn't meet inflation. But that particular lady surpassed. And then so I did some other neighbors on her street. That street, for whatever reason, and I don't think it's fancy or special, it's right across from the Kroger there in North Knoxville. Everyone on that street, when I calculated by inflation their rate increase, that whole street for some reason was assessed by the county at a higher rate so that they surpassed inflation. I have no idea what the county tax assessor did to feel that street was somehow different than a street for
The new Kroger or the old Kroger?
the Fellini,
Fellini? Okay.
the Fellini Kroger, as it's called, which I'm like, hello, murder Kroger in Atlanta. Anyway,
I mean, I'm familiar with the nickname because it's Fountain
Sure.
City and
Well, because you used to
Fellini.
live up the street.
right from both of them. I lived right by Belmorris, which is
Right.
right across from the Fellini one,
Right.
and then right up there by Central, which is right like it was still Target when I moved in. Again, showing where I was and when.
Yeah.
It was still a Target when we first moved in, and it like right when we moved in is when the Target closed down, and then right before we left is when it became the Kroger.
Okay. So anyway, my point is that not every street appraises, and not everybody's going to be equivalent appraisals. They're going to come in and do an assessment.
Right,
and
but in
that's
the-
a conversation for the county tax
Right, but in the
assessor.
broad strokes of it, the idea of why the state law is in place,
Yes.
and why the city tax rate continues to fall over time is because at the end of the day, if your house raises in value, the state
Right.
says that the city can't make any more money off of that. And so at the end of the day, if you're paying $1,200 a year, like your example is, you're
Yeah.
going to be pretty close to that on the other side of this adjustment.
Right.
So again, it's not about where I had the biggest struggle with it is that yes, I agree that the chart is factually accurate, but that feels to me like it's one of those the same thing that Kincannon got in trouble with when she was relieving KPD from their memorandum of agreement with the schools.
I had nothing to do with that.
I'm
Keep
not
going.
saying he did, but I'm just saying it's one of those that out of context, without knowing some more about what's going on, without actually understanding how to read a chart like that, I would see that chart and say, hey, taxes are going down in the city. Not true. Tax rate is going down. True. Because of the way the state and city have to function with the tax laws in place. And that's where my big pushback on this whole conversation is. I don't care about the tax freeze thing or the other parts of it. I'm just trying to clearly understand this one narrative. And I think that's where I think I got stuck in some middle spots in some arguments. And it was like, well, hold on. It's not this other thing over here. It's this, just the simple, broad stroke of it is that over time, the tax rate is obligated to fall without an actual vote to increase tax rate.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
But these guys,
Right. I follow what you're saying now, but that is
Right.
that is not the goal that I'm after.
so
But-
Seth, for the people that want to campaign and say that something crazy is going to happen with the taxes and that we're spending money hand over fist, show me the page, show me the line item, where are you cutting the budget?
I have a specific one that I'm curious about, but we can do that off air because it's a future
Okay.
conversation for me.
Okay.
But again, I don't
Haven't heard of one of them tell us what they're going to cut from the budget.
I don't know. I mean,
On
there's-
either side of my opponents, what are you cutting? Because my constituents, when I knock on their door, they want to know, when am I getting a sidewalk on my street? How fast am I getting these speed humps? Well, Mr. Smith, we'd love to give you the speed humps that you guys need so that you can be outside in your yard and your kid and your dog, and you don't have to worry about getting run over by the guy driving through your neighborhood that lives in the county out there using your neighborhood as a cut through at 60 miles an hour. We love to give you speed humps faster, but we only budget, hold on now, $250,000 a year for speed humps, and every neighborhood's asking for them.
how much does a speed hump cost?
Jesus. Well, I don't know why. There should be, I don't know, a discount center for them. They run about 8,000. But let me tell you how efficient city government is. Those engineers, I'm going to give them a plug. Because these things are so demand. I mean, 4th District loves their speed humps and they want them everywhere. Now, there's some people that don't want them. But the city engineering department is like, we can make them cheaper if we put your speed humps in, not exactly when you asked for them, but we try to coordinate it when your street is next paved so that the paving truck is already there with the asphalt. So the city government and the city employees, they are working very hard to figure out the most efficient way to make things happen. And there was a point at which somebody was like, $250,000, let's cut that out of the city budget. That $250,000 goes a long way for neighborhood happiness. People want to be able to have kids in a yard playing ball and not worry that, little Susie Q is going to chase after the ball in the street and, Johnny D and his Camaro is going to come up and rip roar and run over you because you ran out and got the ball. People shouldn't be going through the neighborhoods at 60 miles an hour. And I will tell you, there was a lady who wanted to get into a fight with me about speed humps, that everyone on a street signed a petition saying, we want this because we don't feel safe. We want to feel safe and secure in our neighborhood. And so everybody signed a petition and they got it. And a lady that lived 2 blocks over here was furious because she drove on that street and she didn't like them. So I forget where I was going with this. The bottom line is
You're fighting people on the street. That's what you were saying.
No, we had a discussion. It was heated. The bottom line is it's $250,000 in the budget, and it brings a lot of people a lot of safety and security. Oh, I know where I was going with this. That particular constituent wanted to argue that we didn't need speed humps because she didn't like them, and then we should instead have police officers issuing tickets. And I'm like, that is not efficient, and that would never fit in the budget to have a police officer, salaried, pension, you know what I mean? The benefits, pension, and salary of having a police officer sit on every street 24/7 giving out tickets for speeders. It's not, we're short on police officers. It's hard to recruit. We just can't do it. So putting in things that are an education, a reminder, that are calming and reducing to be like, this is a neighborhood. This is where people are outside with their pets. They're walking their dogs. They're playing ball. They're having a barbecue, whatever they're doing. They want to live peaceably in their neighborhood. And please don't drive. The speed limit's 25. So don't drive 45 and 60.
My favorite, my favorite weird solution to that problem is over here in District 2, between Kingston Pike and Lionsview. No, anyway, it's a neighborhood that goes through that people like to cut through or whatever, and they have one section where it is one lane off center, and so you literally, if there's somebody else coming, you have to wait, and it's this whole big thing, and it's really annoying. I don't like it.
Okay.
But I acknowledge that it exists, and I don't know. It's kind of problematic. I could see both sides of it. I just like it's just a weird example of a different method than the speed humps that I've never seen anywhere else.
Oh, like a chicane where it offsets it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where like if you go straight, you're running square into a curb. Like the curb comes straight out.
Yeah.
Perpendicular.
Yeah.
And you have to go into what would be the other lane.
Yeah.
To cut angled through it to get back into your own lane.
Yeah.
And so it only goes one. You can only do one car at a time through that zone, for lack of a better word. It's one of the weirder things I've ever seen.
So, Seth, I just want to wrap up by saying when I go out and I talk...
we're done? You're going to finish my show for me?
No, I'm not going to finish your show. I just
you can do the outro. I don't care.
I want to make a final comment about this whole tax conversation, about what I hear from constituents and what I've heard over the last 3.5 years, which is, we want this in our neighborhood. We want that in our neighborhood. When are we going to get this? When are we going to get this? And the end answer is, we can give everything to everybody if we paid for more staff and we put more money in the budget to pay for the engineering. The engineering budget is huge. Stormwater. I have areas in my district where people have flooding issues. And I'm like, hey, Mayor, we've got to put more money in stormwater.
Yeah, like the Flamingo guy at the Fellini Kroger washout there a couple years ago.
So that was a huge dollar item right there at Emerald and Fairmont, the city. And a lot of the projects the city does in engineering, it's 80% federal or state. So there's TDOT and federal dollars that go into a lot of that, and it'll be 20% match from the city to make those projects happen so that businesses are not underwater. People can get into their driveways, whether the Kroger drive-through, you're talking about the guy in the Flamingo, which a police officer had to come and say, hey, man, get out of there, because the water wasn't clean or safe, and they don't want to have to rescue him injured. But that was pretty funny on YouTube, gotta say. I'm sure it's still out there for anybody who wants to look at it.
Knoxville highlights.
Knoxville highlights. Well, there was one time there was a flood in Broadway, and somebody was literally kayaking in Broadway, and that was before the fix up at Emerald and Fairmont.
Right.
So I want to sit down and have a talk about where the pork is. Someone thinks that's in here.
Okay, we could do that. I would love to do that, and I love the premise of going line by line and saying, like in your example that you.
We spend 2 days doing that. You want to spend 2 days?
I will spend 2 days doing that. I just got to figure out when those 2 days are available.
It's going to be after the campaign.
For your $100 a month in your example.
Yeah.
What you get in return?
I think I get a lot for $100.
I know, but I'm saying I'd like to I think that would be a valuable item to have clearly, publicly, easily available to say these are the things. And I mean, I don't know if you're going to do it like you have 180,000th of this service or this project or this public space or this. And I mean, there's a couple of different ways I guess you could do it once you get down to it. But I think kind of clarifying what those things are, and then I'll see if I can get somebody from the county to do a county version of the same thing so that city residents who are paying both taxes can go, this is what I get for my money.
And let me just say, the counter thing somebody's going to sling at me is, well, Lauren, $100 may be nothing to you, but it's really a burden to somebody else. And let me back up and give you a little bit about my background. I came from a single wide trailer down a dirt road And I know what it's like to have your utilities cut off. And my dad always took us to Wendy's to get the meal there with the puffy sticker that I stuck on the dashboard of the car. That gave Georgia Power enough time to drive out to our house and turn our power back on after my dad didn't pay the utility bills for a while. And he would scrape enough money to pay it and get it back on. And we get our Wendy's meal on the way home. I know what it's like to not be able to pay bills. I know what it's like to not be able to go and buy school clothes. I realize that my life is different now than it used to be. And
as it should be, as everybody should be.
As everybody should be. So thank you for that segue, Seth. There's a lot of things that we do in the budget, whether it's keeping areas from flooding or putting in bus stops or stoplights or parks.
Here's a secondary actual budget question. I'm sorry. I know you're on a roll, but what percentage of the income is sales tax? And I think we looked this up actually. I think it was like, well, how much of the city income is sales tax versus property tax?
It's predominantly property tax. And yeah,
I want to say we looked it up. It was like
front.
48% is
because the majority of the local option sales tax for the city goes to the schools.
Right.
So, and I'm glad you brought up sales tax. So hold on, I'll touch on that. Let me finish my statement.
Okay.
My statement was, I understand that it's a burden on people, but a lot of the things we do here in the city, the parks are free and they're available for everybody. They are amenities that make this a welcoming place, that bring in these businesses that are bringing in all three job places that I told you about that have brought jobs into my district. They are salaried positions with benefits. We're not talking about retail jobs without benefits. Okay. So they're good jobs. Some of them don't require a college education.
Amazon drivers are going to be salaried?
I believe so. They're going to be full-time. They're full-time jobs they're $15 an hour with benefits. So you usually work a certain amount to have benefits.
I don't think that hits the federal minimum of required to be a salaried position.
It may not be required to be a salaried position, but it has benefits. So these aren't, they're not minimum wage jobs.
Okay. I was just clarifying.
So my point is we've created a Knoxville where people want to be. When I first moved here, we used to go down to Market Square and my sister would come here and visit and she was like, God, Lauren, you know everyone here. And I said, no, just everybody here lives in my neighborhood because my neighbors owned businesses on Market Square or they worked in the shops on Market Square. Now I go downtown Knoxville and I can't find anybody I know because Knoxville's become a place where people want to be. It's packed downtown to the point where I'm like, a little packed down here. I think I'll go to the fringes, like over, North Knoxville and leave that to, the people that are coming from everywhere else. But the point is we've created a place where people are coming and they're opening up companies and they're creating jobs. And instead of saying, let's protect people who are going to be burdened by taxes by keeping the taxes low and not providing any services and cutting off the street lights and not hiring any police officers and don't hire the co-responder, what is it we're doing that we're lifting people up? The city puts, off the top of my head, I want to say it's $300,000, but it could be a little bit off on that number. We put money into community schools, which if you're not familiar with community schools, you should have somebody talk about schools and community schools on here because they're going in and basically providing wraparound services to families within the schools, the at-risk schools, middle schools, and elementary schools. There are things in the budget that go to social programs and programs in the city because we are an urban area and we have inherent problems with, being an urban area. We have homelessness. We spend money on homelessness. We also get a lot of federal pass-through dollars from HUD and other things that address those issues. So they're not coming from the local tax. Property tax.
Right, because again, that's one of the things that confuses me, and which is part of why I would like to get deeper into this at a future date, because I think it's hard to keep track of the details. Being, you have sales tax, you have property tax, you have federal grant money, you have state grant money, you have state property where the state's actually paying for it because it's state property instead of being X, Y, or Z. And so I think, again, it's like I make the joke all the time. I think this is a super confusing, super complicated situation. And
life is complicated.
I don't know if it's this complicated. How many incomes does your household have?
You're talking about my personal house?
I mean, if you're going to count you get paid for city council. You get paid for Pillissippi.
Pennies on the hour at city council.
You're true.
Okay.
But your husband works?
My husband works, so he
you have three income. You have a 3-income household?
Sure.
If we're, again, joking about the pennies on the hour for the city council part. But I mean, we just in a quick run through, and I'm sure there's more than I said. We have 5-6 different incomes that the city uses within its budget. You know, and for a lay person who, you know, a lot of people out there have one income in their household.
Yep.
And have their normal day-to-day expenses, and that's a hard budget to keep up with. You know, so my point only being is that yes, life is complicated, but it's not as complicated as government budgeting. It's my point.
But in some ways, personal budgeting is complicated, and paying
I'm not saying
federal
it's,
taxes. And I don't think the way taxes run here per se in Knoxville are any different than any other city. It's just complicated. You got federal, state grant funds that are coming through.
Right, and I'm not telling us special in it. I think it's but again, one of my things is just because that's the way it is that the way it needs to be is always one of the questions I like to ask about a lot of issues, and this being one of them. Does it need to be this complicated? Maybe.
So
you know, I don't know. I haven't gotten to the point where I can figure it out well enough to find things where it's like this is complicated for no reason.
Right.
You know, because you know we don't get the chance to do that because we're too busy campaigning. Not a knock on that. Just like there's campaign cycles that you're not in the job for long enough for, you know, something like this to get really, really well broke down. And if you're lucky enough to get 2 or 3 terms in, is it term limited? I don't know.
It's term limited
so
2.
Yeah. So at best you have 8 years to figure it out, and then somebody else is coming in. And so,
you know I have a former neighbor that used to be on county commission, and his statement was 8 years hard time for 2 terms. But also another person has said, if you do the job correctly, you'll be tired at the end of 8 years.
You don't want to continue.
I mean, there are people in the past that did like 28 years. I think Milton Roberts died in the 4th District seat. The rec center out at Holston Hills is named after him, and I think he was the longest serving at 30-something.
Right.
And that blows my mind.
That's too much. I agree.
It's a bit much. I don't know what the man was doing. I don't know anything about Milton Roberts, so I'm not trying to knock him. I just don't understand how someone can be perpetually in it, because literally I'm taking calls, and maybe things are different now because I'm taking messages through all the social media platforms, text messages, phone, letters to my house, all that stuff, email. And I'm not saying I'm ungrateful for that. I really enjoy helping people.
Right, but it's a lot of work, and to do it for
it's a
30
lot of work.
years.
Yeah, it sounds a little crazy. I mean, it infects I can't travel sometimes because I'm like, oh, can't do that because I'm going to do city council. So I think 8 years is a fair shake at it. You learn it. But I think that's the other thing too. I think it'd be great as soon as this election cycle is over, or whoever's watching now is like, now's a great time to learn the job and pay attention so that you can run. Don't just like, I saw in the news that they were going to have these elections. I think I'll go down and pick up a petition.
I mean, there's plenty on both sides that I've met that only run for the intent of making sure there's a choice. And it's like, I get it, but I don't like that premise. Like, it's like, if the choice has some merit to it, okay. But if it's just I'm running to make sure that there is a second name on a ballot, I don't like that.
Yeah, and I will say,
I don't like that there's only one name on the ballot too.
Sure.
But it's like the solution is not just to throw another name on the ballot, is to actually put somebody who wants to actually do the job.
Who wants to do the job.
Right.
Yeah. And I sincerely want to do the job. And people asked me to do it. The first time somebody said I should run for council, I told them they were insane. And then look at where I am, and it's like
right, tooth and nail to keep it.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, we've had plenty of conversations. This is our 3rd or 4th episode now.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen you get as excited on any other episode as you have on some of the topics we've talked about today.
Because I feel like people were being misled.
Well, I think people are being misled. I think people are always misled in this game. I think that's what we're used to. I think that's
I don't play like that, and I don't like that. And
as sad as it is, I think that is the normal of this game anymore.
That's sad.
It is, and I think I don't see a plethora of persons out there trying to dismantle that. There's people out there, but they're always the people that are already far enough in it that it doesn't matter as much as, you know. Again, it's the little bit of populism in me or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't see anything out there that I can actually ingest and understand and give me an informed opinion on what's going on in front of me. And I don't think there's necessarily, again, incentives are important. I don't know what the right incentive would be for somebody to produce such a thing, to be a nonpartisan center of the road. Here's what's going on in front of you. There's bits and bobs here and there, and there's pieces, and there's good articles, and there's good stories from different places, but it doesn't feel like a good, hands-off effort on any of them. And so that's one of my concerns with it. Not that I'm a solution to that either. Don't get me wrong. But anyway, we got to go. You got too much. We went way long. I love it. Love it.
Sorry.
No, I love it because I got questions I want to ask off air, and so I can't do that for that. Plus, my kids have been quiet the whole time. Anyway, almost in agreement, everybody. Lauren Ryder, she's running for District 4, as mentioned. I'll add this to the city election cheat sheet guide as far as an episode that you can learn more about her, as well as the other episodes she's been on. Almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to our website, almostinagreement.com. You can get all the episodes there, as well as any of your favorite major podcast providers. almostinagreement.com/cityelections21. Just a quick breakdown. It's not super in-depth. I only have one opinion on that whole page. Everything else is actual produced elsewhere. I don't make anything up on it. So that's all I got this week. I don't think I have any more. Chris Davis is coming in next week. We're going to talk about that tax freeze petition, as well as some other things that are going on as we prepare for August 31st, the primary, as well as early voting started when?
Oh, August 11th through the 26th. Thanks for having me.
Lauren Ryder, everybody. Oh.
Sorry, man. I get all riled.